Okay, MrMostDaysOff, now we're ready for the TeePublic ad.
Head over to tpublic.com/bestdarndiddly right now to support our show. Get yourself some Best Darn Diddly merchandise and help grow our podcast. I messed up there. Can I get another take?
Okay, just a second.
Out of the way, amateur. Hey, it's Krusty. Go to tpublic.com/bestdarndiddly. Hey, it's Krusty. Go to patreon.com/bestdarndiddly. Go to popthreads.com and save 15% with the discount code Simpsons. Hey, it's Krusty. Go to bestdarndiddly.com to get all your podcast needs from the greatest show on earth. Learn from a professional, kid.
All right, Krusty, we're ready for your take. Krusty?
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as MrMostDaysOff, and today we are bringing you the conclusion of Homer the Clown with our good friend Toph from the Gravity Beard podcast joining us along the way. Of course, we'll have Richie the WizKid joining us as always, and we are going to dive right back into the episode right now with Homer getting his clown career off to a somewhat of a rough start. We come back from our break to a Krusty Burger restaurant opening where we see a giant stack of hamburgers lined up and an announcer saying to help introduce our fantastic new burger, the one with ketchup. Here he is, coming in by parachute, Krusty the Clown. And I love Smash. I love this because we see Homer just flying through, or quote unquote, Krusty falling from the sky and crashing through this giant stack of hamburgers, which I guess is the only thing that prevented him from dying. But then several moments later, you see his empty parachute come down right behind him.
Well, and there's no explanation. Obviously, they don't start the scene from him jumping from a plane, so there's no explanation of where he came from or why
or how he got there. Yeah, it's just
for some reason he's hurling down with no parachute.
And immediately he comes out clearly dazed, but still trying to be in character, and he's rolling around. The children are really eating it up, to be fair. But to audience, I now proclaim this new burger for sale. Yay! And we see that the MC is kind of, telling Homer, or signing to Homer, it's like, hey man, you're not clowning hard enough. Clown harder. So Homer's like trying to roll around and do all this stuff. And we see what's very clearly supposed to be a parody of the Hamburglar sneak onto the set. Now, it's actually the very popular character, but only in his second episode appearance, of Estonian Dwarf, who we originally met in Burns Air, taking on the role of Lisa Simpson. But for now, he is the Hamburglar.
It's the Krusty Burglar!
Homer actually jumps on this poor man and just starts beating the crap out of this dude.
Oh my god, he's stealing all the burglars!
Yeah, and this is one of the more... there's a lot of shocking moments in The Simpsons, but this was one of the most shocking, maybe.
This was super violent, and in fact, it really caused another rift between two people who have rifted many times before on The Simpsons. During the director's commentary, they talked about this.
Merkin and Matt. It's not a real tip if it's not Merkin and Matt.
So Matt Groening and David Merkin, once again, were on very opposite ends of the spectrum of this joke. David Merkin kept pushing that he wanted it to be more and more and more violent versus Matt Groening, who was very uncomfortable with the amount of violence towards this Estonian dwarf. He did not feel comfortable with that.
So that's interesting because that there's an explanation, a story behind it, because that scene stood out to me as much as any in this episode.
Sure, yeah, and it's become a relatively popular meme for especially with the kid's line at the end. Stop it, he's already dead.
Which I didn't realize that came from this episode until that moment, and I was like, oh my gosh.
I see that more or less every day on Twitter. It's a very popular one. Especially if somebody's in like a roast or a battle of some sort of wits on Twitter, eventually someone will have a knockout blow and almost inevitably somebody else will use this meme to end it.
Well, you just did it, Richie, but the specific way that line is read is like nails the scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the kids have a sense of what's going on, and like they're actually smart enough to comprehend that this man is dying.
Right, exactly. So it's a perfect way to end that scene.
Please look at my medic alert bracelet.
Krusty the Clown, everybody.
That'll be making our list of Merkin moments at the end of the season, almost definitely. I can't see it not. But Homer is done beating up small people for now and is off to a birthday party at Milhouse's home. The children are going crazy for him as Krusty comes driving in, but he crashes his car into a tree. And this is actually one of John Swartzwelder's, or the collective people who are John Swartzwelder's, favorite jokes in the entire series. It's just that the car hits and there's like a 3-second delay before Homer, as Krusty, flies through the windshield and crashes on the front porch.
So what's the famous bit that you're referring to?
That right there is essentially
just that it's not instantaneous, like it's not realistic. It's like it's clowned up.
The time delay is just something that John Swartzwelder apparently really gets a kick out of. Like, and if you're not familiar with John Swartzwelder, he's the writer that is credited with the most Simpsons scripts ever. So he's written more than any other. However, he's also very well known for being somewhat of a hermit. He doesn't really like public attention. He only has a handful of pictures ever taken of him, like at award shows and things of that nature. And he's so secretive that it's to the point that there's actually urban legends that he doesn't exist at all, and that his name is used anytime that the Simpsons writer doesn't want to put their name on a script, or it was like a collaboration of many Simpsons writers. So there's some urban legends about John Swartzwelder just because he does live a relatively private life. But some of the Simpsons writers we've talked to on this show have assured us that they're good personal friends and that it really is just a man.
Yeah, that's something somebody would say to help cover up a story.
Well, and similar to him hurling in, with the parachute failure into the stack of hamburgers, there's really no explanation. It's not like he's drunk or something. So like, why does he come flying off the road and hit a tree? But I think it's another example of how they packed in so many jokes. It was like a space where he couldn't just drive up and stop the car and get out.
No, there's 8 seconds of blank space there to get more laughs out of.
Well, they got to show how upset he's getting with being a clown up to this point. And that just kind of snowballs it.
No, that's true. That's a great point too. But the joke isn't just that he hits the tree. It's also that he comes flying out of the windshield, but then he also sticks doesn't he like roll and
it's like ta-da or hey kids.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly.
I really like the interaction with Bart and Milhouse up in Milhouse's room, because Milhouse, he got Krusty the Clown to come to his birthday party, so he's trying to do the whole braggadocious, rubbing it in a little bit. Well, I guess you're pretty impressed, huh, Bart? My dad got Krusty the Clown to personally appear at my party.
I have a feeling I could get him to appear at my house.
I don't know, Bart. My dad's a pretty big wheel down at the Cracker Factory.
Also, one of my favorite lines in the entire episode. My dad is kind of a big wheel down at the Cracker Factory.
Is this the first time we have them reference that? Because they'll bring Kurt's job up a lot through the series.
Yes, this is the first time that this was actually... This is the first time that his job was identified and that he was essentially employed at the Cracker Factory. He's also notably not nearly as pathetic of a character as he will become. At this time, it seems like he still is holding on to at least a little bit of dignity.
Well, and the reference to the Cracker Factory, which obviously is a very boring place to work, reminds me of, and again, this might be out of sequence, but when the school takes the field trip to the box factory.
Yeah. When Bart gets the spot on the Krusty the Clown show, I didn't do it, boy.
I don't know, he's dead or something.
Right.
He's sick or dead. I don't know. I don't remember.
What I think is funny is that Milhouse seems to completely forget that he was wearing essentially the same suit to Bart's house to meet Krusty and like father, like clown, yet he seems to completely have forgotten that instance.
Oh yeah, he's already pulled that trick off, huh?
Yeah. And I enjoy that Homer gives a balloon animal giraffe to Ralph and calls him a little girl.
I'm a boy!
That's the spirit. Never give up.
Which is a great unexpected response to that line.
It plays well in today's society, too.
It does. It really does.
Simpsons is always ahead of its time. What can we say?
Yep.
But Homer is just dancing in front of the children and getting stuff thrown at him for quite a while, it would seem. He finally kind of is just getting tired of it and collapses into a chair. But Milhouse's dad, Mr. Van Houten, comes up and reminds him that it's not 5:30 yet. Again, showing just a little bit of backbone, more so than he would in later episodes. We next see Homer at work, though, still dressed as Krusty the Clown, and Lenny actually addresses this. Lenny and Carl walk into his station, and they address him, "Hey, nice threads."
Ooh, I'm beat. And after work, I've got to dedicate a new Jiffy Lube and co-host the Ace Awards.
Wow, Jiffy Lube.
Boy, you're really running yourself ragged.
I love this little bit here. So
Yeah.
the Ace Awards are actually a reference to the real life cable Ace Awards, which were basically an honor for cable television shows or things of that nature. It was an award show that ran from 1978 to 1997 before disbanding. I guess I'm not
So
sure.
this joke
why.
literally killed them.
This joke may have put them out of business. This was the knockout blow. The next year, the Jiffy Lube Actors Awards were the big rage.
I'm surprised they started in 1978.
Yeah, that seems like cable wasn't really that big of a thing then. Maybe they weren't a cable award show when they started out. I'm not going to lie. I basically Googled and just looked at like the front section of information. I did not spend a lot of time diving into the history of the cable age.
You didn't do a deep dive into the Ace
No,
Awards.
I feel like that's
Shame on you.
well, you know what? We'll make a Patreon award if you really want to hear our take on the Cable Ace Awards. We will provide that for you, but it's going to cost you on that one.
Don't make promises we can't keep,
As it
Miles.
should.
Hey man, I'll talk about the Cable Ace Awards. I'll dance for money, whatever. But yeah, Homer is essentially just kind of at his wit's end a little bit. When I started this clown thing, I thought it'd be nothing but glory. You know, the glory of being a clown. I tell you, it's hard, tiring work. But when I see the smiles on their little faces, I just know they're getting ready to jab me with something.
So true.
Another one of my favorite lines.
We also get a quick cut over to the Ace Awards where we know Krusty or Homer will be. But for now, it's Dick Cavett who stands behind the podium. And there's a series of jokes here that Merkin thinks is possibly the meanest they've ever been to a guest star. But it seems that Dick Cavett was actually really well known or kind of got a reputation of he would tend to tell a lot of stories about times he was hanging out with more famous people than himself. So they decided that they would really just dig at that with his guest appearance. And Merkin actually wrote most of this, where it's things like, "So, I just like to say, I know Woody Allen." Or later when he starts trying to talk about him, he mentions another, I think he says he knows Starsky from Hutch, or I don't remember what he said. He says he knows somebody. No, he had dinner with Groucho. That's what it was.
Look, you're going to be having dinner with Groucho tonight if you don't beat it.
Okay, so are you guys that familiar with Dick Cavett?
No, not
Nope.
at all. Other than Googling him for this.
Well, I won't take too much time with this because most people probably don't care about
No,
Dick
we love
Cavett.
that
No,
type
take
of stuff
time.
here. Yeah, do it.
But I did an episode specifically about Dick Cavett because he's a personal hero of mine in the world of
Oh, fun.
entertainment. And if you can just go listen to the episode, and then I won't take up time on your show. But it's essentially, he was really, really well respected in the entertainment community back in the mid 70s, amongst the biggest stars of the time. I mean, the biggest ones. So they made a Woody Allen reference here, but I mean Marlon Brando, whoever the biggest names in entertainment were, and a few of them would go on Dick Cavett's show and no other show, and to the point where they wouldn't just be guests on his show, but he actually had personal friendships with them, and he would have them out to his house. Like they would stay for the weekend,
cool.
and he would spend time with these people. But he was on at a time when Jack Parr hosted the Tonight Show, who was the predecessor to Johnny Carson, and Merv Griffin, who a lot of people don't even know who Merv Griffin is, but he was a legend in television. And so Merv Griffin was on one channel with a late night show. Jack Parr was on the other channel, and then later Carson, and then Dick Cavett. And so Dick Cavett's show did relatively poorly and was only on for 4 or 5 seasons. and eventually got canceled. But he was on at the time right at the heat of the Vietnam War, and he took that very seriously. But Dick Cavett he was called the thinking man's talk show host, and he struck this amazing balance of having this really dry wit and having really quick, witty comebacks to really difficult comments to get him out of a jam or an awkward situation, but could also handle something as serious as the Vietnam War. And he had Muhammad Ali and Woody Allen, all these people on there that wanted to get very serious about the war, and he could hang in a conversation like that. But if it got awkward, he was intelligent enough to lighten the mood or get out of it or be able to segue or just move on from it. And so I did a lot of research on Dick Cavett when I did the episode and just learned some really fascinating things about him. So he might be one of the most underrated personalities in American entertainment history, quite honestly.
That's awesome, man. I'm so glad that you happened to be on for the episode that referenced him for this. How perfect is that? Yeah.
For sure. No, I have huge respect for him, and he is still living. He's probably in his 80s, but it's interesting that you made that comment about David Merkin and how this might be the meanest they've been to a guest. Dick Cavett was the kind of guy that could probably handle it.
Oh, he did.
Ironically.
He said that in the commentary he just laughed and was a great sport about it, but they felt borderline guilty about doing it because it was kind of almost like an insider joke to some extent, because only people that like were used to hanging in circles with him would really know that a lot of his stories happened to start with, oh, I was hanging out with, Muhammad Ali and we, did whatever, and just kind of poking fun a little bit. But yeah, to your point, he totally took it in stride and delivered the lines with gusto and a smile on his face.
He did. Well, and I will tell you a quick story that Dick Cavett liked to tell at the time, just because it's appropriate for this episode. So there's a story that he liked to tell where he was, and I think it's a real story and it probably really happened, but he was close friends with Marlon Brando, and they hung out and they were friends. But he was at a restaurant, a very nice restaurant with Marlon Brando, and a woman came over to them. It was a big fan of probably Brando, but maybe Dick Cavett as well. And she was flirting with both of them and kind of propositioned them, if you know what I mean.
Three-way hookup.
Right. And Dick Cavett likes to say that they turned her down because they hadn't finished their soup.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah. So that's one of the stories that there's another story where he one of his producers gave him some advice that because you would have a guest on, and he would have guests on for a full hour. Sometimes he would only have a single guest on his show. And sometimes you would just stare off into space because they'd be giving a long answer to a short question, and you would just lose place. And the guest would stop talking, and then you had been spacing out and didn't realize what they had said last and didn't know how to respond. And his producer gave him a piece of advice because this had happened a couple of times. And she said, have a question ready that just as a segue. You just go on to the next subject, but have a question ready. And he goes, well, okay, that's a great idea, but what question should I use? And she said, ask them if they pee in the shower.
That is a good icebreaker.
Yeah.
And that you can segue from anywhere with that.
Right. And so anytime he lost track of whatever the person's response was, if he spaced out, then he'd ask him if they'd ever peed in the shower.
So, Toph, I do have to ask, sir, do you in fact pee in the shower?
I don't. I don't pee in the shower.
Wow.
I'm not like George Costanza where I just say it's pipes and they'll go in the same place. I don't believe that.
I am a firm believer that those pipes are all going to the same place, and that's just an extra stop you don't have to make.
Yeah.
I respect that.
So back to The Simpsons for now. We see Homer essentially hitting rock bottom with the whole clowning industry. Being a clown sucks. You get kicked by kids, bit by dogs, and admired by the elderly. Who am I clowning? I have no business being a clown. I'm leaving the clowning business to all the other clowns in the clowning business.
Woo, woo, woo.
And of course, anytime it's raining, it pours. It seems like Homer is about to get a ticket.
Well, Velocity Boy. I'm going to give you the biggest ticket you... Hey, Krusty.
I'm not Krusty.
Oh, to think I was going to give you a ticket. Krusty the Clown.
I am not Krusty.
Hey, Krusty. Remember the time we got loaded and set those beavers loose in that pine furniture store? Memories. All right, you take it easy, Krusty.
Hey, he didn't give me a ticket. This is an intriguing development. And I just love that this is just boldly stated, like, out loud by a character in the script. Like, instead of them just, like, transitioning like you might, they're like, well, it's time to turn this around now. We've only got a little bit of time left. So, time for Homer to get caught up in this entrapment game that we're going to have with misidentification of people and all that good stuff coming up towards the end.
A semi-fourth wall break.
He explicitly calls out this turning point in the episode.
Yeah, I love when they do stuff like that. It's real great.
I do too.
And Homer immediately is kind of exploring the boundaries of where this Krusty identity could take him. We see him at the Quickie Mart, and he is just completely blown away when he learns, I get 5% off of everything in the store just because just because I'm Krusty the Clown?
And that means he's still paying partial percentages of taxes still.
Right.
I love Apu's response, though.
How could I charge full price to the man whose lust for filthy magazines kept me in business during that first shaky year? Oh, by the way, here's your new issue of Gigantic Asses.
It's just a magazine cover with a giant yellow butt on it.
Another one of my favorite lines in the show.
And Merkin, once again on the commentary, pointed out that everyone on staff got a subscription to Giant Asses magazine because of this joke. We later see Homer trying to take his family out to dinner, but he's having a bit of a disagreement with Marge. I'm telling you, Marge, this'll work. They think I'm Krusty and they give us free stuff. I've been getting free stuff all day, and he holds out a bucket of paint. See? Look at this swell bucket of house paint.
I'm not saying it won't work. I'm just saying it's dishonest.
My favorite joke of the whole episode. Well, if we agree, then why are we arguing?
I mean, he's got a point.
Yes, that's another great line. And that line reminds me of another episode where Marge comes into the living room and Homer's watching TV and she stands in front of him. So he like cranes his neck and she moves over a little bit more. And then he's like folded over the front of the couch watching. And she says, Homer, I'm trying to talk to you. And he says, but then I won't be watching TV. You can see the bind I'm in. Like totally disregarding what she's trying to do there.
Yeah, no, I love anytime you have Homer's selfishness kind of just like overrun the front of his mind, and it almost just like comes out of his mouth without a filter, which is wonderful.
Well, I can't get away with it anymore. I used to watch a filthy amount of television, but that was maybe my favorite line from The Simpsons of all time. But then I won't be watching TV. You can see the bind I'm in.
I've been there myself.
That is a brilliant, brilliant line.
And it's a brilliant plan that Homer has, because he is, as dishonest as it may be, ending up with a lot of free stuff. When he walks into the restaurant, he's immediately greeted by Luigi. Hey, Krusty! Hey, beautiful date tonight, huh? And such a lovely children you have now.
I'm more striking than lovely.
You come with me. Come with Luigi. You don't want to sit with the rest of these scum.
Hey, what do you call that?
I only consider you scum compared to a Krusty.
Well, right, I can see that.
Yeah, you see how you scum. I love this whole bit, too.
I do, too.
And this is where we get to Krusty with his mob woes continuing. He's talking with his financial advisor, his accountant, Bill, and they're actually watching the Globetrotters game we were talking about earlier. Bill is flabbergasted. Let me get this straight. You took all the money you made franchising your name and bet it against the Harlem Globetrotters?
Oh, I thought the generals were due. He's spinning the ball on his finger. Just take it. Take the ball.
He just he actually kicks the ball over his head and scores.
That game was fixed. They were using a freaking ladder, for God's sakes.
But fixed as it may be, Fat Tony doesn't care. He's afraid that the time has come for Krusty to pay up.
Look, I'm cleared out. Just take the clown college.
We already have taken it. I love that we actually cut to the clown college where a mobster is teaching the classes. Kids have a lot of money these days, so after you finish your performance, you might consider robbing them.
That's good advice.
Hey, you know what? Kids make more sometimes than I do in a lot of cases. I hear these stories. It's like, wait, you got how much for mowing a lawn? Like, I am clearly living life wrong.
Look, what can I tell you? You can't get blood from a turnip. You want to kill me? Go ahead and kill me.
And immediately we hear firing at him. Like, people start shooting bullets at him.
Whoa, hey, oh, all right, okay, already. Look, we can talk this over.
Tony's like, no more talk. It's time for us to take you for a ride.
Oh, no. Mind if I go to the bathroom first?
I see no harm in that. I love this bit, too, because Krusty runs off screen. We're just watching the mobsters, but in the background, we hear a door slam, and then we hear cars peeling out, a window open, and then we actually hear a jet fly overhead. And there's several moments of silence before Legs, one of the henchmen, replies, when he's done in there, I gotta go.
Yes, and this that was one of my favorite parts of the whole episode too. And part of the genius is what you just described. That entire sequence where you hear all of those sound effects is just a still shot of Fat Tony and his crew, right there in the office.
It's like, obviously there's a lot of action happening, but we see none of it.
Right, no, you just see the blinking eyes of these guys sitting perfectly still.
Well, I think it's funnier, too, that you can imagine, like, you can see Krusty, like, panically running, whereas if they would have shown it, I don't think it would have been anywhere as funny as it is just hearing it.
No, not at all. It wouldn't have been anywhere close as funny.
Agreed. But that does bring us to the end of our second act. We're going to take another quick break and be right back for the conclusion of Homer the Clown.
I'm Jay.
I'm Bob.
And I'm Corey.
We are the Cretins Guild.
We're a trio of man-children whose friendship predates the Lion King, Green Day's Dookie, the N64, and the Chunnel.
We have backgrounds working in television, video games, radio broadcasting, creative writing, and pizza delivery. That's a large cheese, right?
On our podcast, Nerd or Not, you'll hear us talk about board games, TV, movies, comics, collectibles, video games, wrestling, theme parks. We even did a segment on pizza.
So check and listen to us on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. And check out our socials on Twitter and Instagram under Cretins Guild.
Welcome to the Guild.
Greetings, friend. Do you wish to look as happy as me? Well, you've got the power inside you right now, so use it and send $1 to Best Darn Diddly. You can find us on patreon.com or donate to us directly on PayPal at bestdarndiddly@gmail.com. Don't delay. Eternal happiness is just $1 away.
$1 for eternal happiness, and to support one of my favorite podcasts. I'd be happier with $1.
We return for our third act, and the hunt for Krusty is on. Fat Tony and crew are after them, checking out the east side, checking out Roman Budapest. They want to do a total world search. And that's when we see Homer at the car dealer right by where they're at. And I love Tony's line, cancel the world search.
I want a free car because I'm Krusty. Krusty the Clown? Get it? Crust, honk, T, honk.
Well, I can't give you the car, Krusty, but I can let you have this little number for practically nothing. Only $38,000. And then immediately we see bullets start flying, and they just light up the hood of this car.
and he had a very quick, witty response to that.
Yeah, I love that as well. Homer's like, what are all these holes?
They're speed holes. They make the car go faster.
Oh yeah, speed holes.
I enjoy when Louis pulls up the rifle and he asks, should I shoot him gangland style or execution style? Listen to your heart.
To your heart.
Right.
That is good. But he clearly needs some aim practice because he just destroys this car, in which I love the salesman's response to that too. You want my advice? I think you should buy this car.
Like the window's shot out, the car's, all the tires are shot out, like everything's shot to crap.
Krusty is taking this mob debt seriously. He's gone off to Switzerland.
He's spending money he could have paid the debt off with, trying to run away.
That's, of course, the big reveal of the joke to come, because we know that this is for all of the money that Krusty had sold his likeness for, but we don't yet know what that number is. But of course we do, and that's what makes all this hilarious. For now, though, yeah, he's talking to his doctor about, oh my god, I look exactly the same, you moron! He was trying to change his appearance so he wouldn't be recognized. I love the doctor. Ho ho! Nonsense, Krusty! You look at least 10 years younger. Plus, I did your breasts.
Does anybody hear me complaining about the breasts? Oh, what's the use? I gotta go back to Springfield and face the music.
And we see that Krusty has a very large set of tits, essentially. That he got a boob job.
Can you loan me a bus fare?
And the doctor starts stuffing money in between his breasts.
Hey!
Meanwhile, back at the house, the Simpsons home specifically, Homer is adding some speed holes to his car using
I
a
love
pickaxe.
this scene.
Ned, the neighbor, of course, comes up. What you diddly doing, neighbor?
Putting speed holes in my car makes it go faster.
This is an excellent sequence.
Oh yeah, I love this, and Ned is so great here as well. The whole concept, but is that so? Well, gee, maybe the old Flanders mobile could use some. And then immediately we hear a rifle shot, and it hits Ned in the chest, and he collapses. But gets up just moments later. Oh, wow, lucky I always keep a Bible close to my heart, and he actually pulls out a Bible from his breast pocket. Another shot, Ned goes down again, and then immediately gets back up. Oh, lucky I was wearing an extra large piece of the True Cross today. I think I'll go inside.
That's like the most like not happy I've seen Flanders, I think, at this point. I think I'll go inside.
But he still keeps the like friendly neighbor smile.
Yeah.
Like he's done his due diligence of being friendly, but doesn't want to keep pushing his odds. And to be fair, immediately after leaving, he shoots again, and we see it hit the pickaxe where Ned was standing. I love Homer here. What keeps doing that?
I told you we should have bought more than 3 bullets. Let's just grab him.
Fat Tony and the thugs jump out of the car, bag up Homer, and take him, even though Homer is very strongly protesting that he's not Krusty, he's Homer Simpson.
I love the fact, though, that like they did the bit in the previous scene where like, we need to go get more bullets, and then they actually kind of mini reference it here, like, I told you we should have bought more than 3, which is as bad as
3.
as bad as Legs was before, Louie was before. You should have already known you're going to need more than 3, which means they need the money Krusty has to pay for more bullets.
You know, when they mentioned the store, too, it was Fat Tony said, let's go to Big 5, which is actually a sporting goods chain out in California. When he first had that in the script, however, he was noted by the censors that they did not want to include that, which he was furious about because he simply asked the question, does Big 5 sell bullets? And of course they do, so he felt that it was a completely acceptable reference. The issue they were having is apparently during the O.J. Simpson's trial, the store came up because that might be where O.J. allegedly bought a knife that may or may not have been used or part of the evidence or crime scene, and they were worried that they were making an O.J. Simpson reference, but it was like, no, you buy bullets from a sporting goods store. Big 5 sells bullets, so there's no reason we should change this.
Bullets aren't a gun. I mean, a knife. I mean, whatever.
Well, I think the funny thing is, so they make multiple attempts to shoot Homer, and they're using a sniper rifle, but it's the worst attempts you could possibly make. They're
well,
not
it seemed
even
like
close.
they're off by like 3 feet to the left both times because they consistently hit Ned Flanders in the heart, so that tells me the sights are probably
It's
off.
like Nelson's BB gun.
Right.
But Homer is just protesting with Fat Tony. He's trying to say, you know, he's not who he thinks he is. He's Homer Simpson. But Tony replies, the same Homer Simpson who crashed his car through the wall of our club?
Actually, my name is Barney. Yeah, Barney Gumble.
The same Barney Gumble who keeps taking pictures of my sister?
Which, creepy Barney. Stop that. Actually, my real name is, think, Krusty, think. Joe Valachi.
The same Joe Valachi who squealed to the Senate committee about organized crime?
Benedict Arnold.
The same Benedict Arnold who plotted to surrender West Point to the hated British?
Don't
I love just how much of a train this gets on. They just keep going and going. This is one of those jokes that works because they just keep taking it stupidly far.
Yeah, well, in between the last two, it fast forward to when they're actually at the mob headquarters, I believe.
Right, so it implied there's a lot more of these questions or names given.
Well, and actually, don't take this as a complaint, but I almost wish that they would have gone one more.
I could see that being good too. Yeah, if they would have taken it just one step further.
They still could have landed on Benedict Arnold, but I almost wanted one more like that was even more absurd or more detailed than that. They go from things that they should be very familiar with to Benedict Arnold, where they'd have to be obviously historically knowledgeable. And so one more after Benedict Arnold, where you'd be like, "There's no way those guys would know that."
Sure, a really obscure reference.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I can see that. Or maybe somebody mob related, because Homer's actually getting drug in to meet an elderly man in a black coat who ends up to be a Don Vittorio. Or Vittorio DiMaggio. It's Don Vittorio DiMaggio.
Is this the only episode that he appears in?
It's definitely the first episode he appears in, but I'm
We have
pretty
other
sure we'll
Dons.
see him reappear in the future, yeah. And,
Okay.
he may have actually been in, like, a background in previous episodes, now that I say that. I'd have to go back and revisit.
Okay, because I've seen this episode several times before, but this was I'm rewatching it this time. He was the least familiar part of the entire thing.
Sure. Well, and he's only in it. I mean, we're on page 12 of 13 of the script at this point, and I mean, he's
Right.
only in it for just a short window of time, which is actually one of the funnier parts of this whole sequence we're about to talk
Absolutely.
about, is just how quickly this whole Simpsons reset occurs. Because for now, Don Vittorio is very upset that he has to kill somebody that he so admires, and initially even says, "I cannot do it. To murder a funny man of such genius would be a crime. Tell you what, Krusty, do me my favorite trick, where you ride the little bike for me through the loop, and I will let you live."
Oh, but I've never been able to do that.
And I love this little visual gag here because he actually cocks the trigger back and says, and Homer's still trying to negotiate.
Hey, how about if I just squirt you in the face with my boutonniere?
So, because guns work this way, Don Vittorio cocks the gun back even further to make it more menacing.
Okay.
Apparently, they originally were going to go further with this idea, but they cut it down to this because it made the writers laugh, but not a lot of other people. So Homer grabs his bike. He has no other option but to give it a try. I mean, he's never been able to do it before.
He's gotten
But
kind of close.
He's gotten close, and
Ish.
this attempt is off to a good start. He's getting speed. He's not wobbly. He's on track to hit his target. And for a brief moment, we think he might just make it. And in fact, off screen, we're actually watching the eyeballs of the mobsters, which is a really fun shot because we see Homer make it all the way to the top of the loop, but then their heads stop right at noon.
He nice shots himself.
He nice shots himself right before he takes the plunge. But yeah, he collapses, only making it halfway around before collapsing through the loop. And this upsets the Don.
Ta-da!
The fact that you did not do the trick well is the biggest insult of all. And he cocks the gun back again. Only at this moment, the actual Krusty the Clown burst in the door, ready to save the day. Great line. Another contender for favorite jokes when one of the henchmen gasps and's like, "Oh my god, I'm seeing double here! 4 Krusties!"
Well, I love that line, but I also almost just as much love what Krusty says when he busts in the door. He doesn't complete the line.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I came to... Ho-ho! You got a deadly game of cat and mouse going. I'll come back.
A deadly game of cat and mouse.
It makes very little sense, but I love that I love that Krusty's just like, "Yep, you're good, I'm out. You seem like you found what you're looking for." But yeah, I love that too. Homer is immediately like, "Thank you, thanks a lot, you came to save me."
Yeah, that's what I did.
But unfortunately, Don Vittorio has business to take care of, but Krusty has a last-minute idea.
Vittorio says he only wants to shoot Krusty and that he apologizes to Homer for almost making a grievous error.
You're totally right. Yeah. Vittorio says to him, "My apologies to you. I almost made a grievous error." He cocks the gun and points it at Krusty this time.
Which, wasn't it already cocked twice?
He's cocked it like 4 times at this point, I think, if you count the double cock in the first one.
Wait, he can't kill anybody if he doesn't know which one is the real Krusty. Wait.
He actually grabs the top of Homer's head and he just starts like switching him back and forth like it's 3-card Monty.
And I think that might be one of my favorite parts of this entire act.
It's so obvious.
Well, at first, Vittorio's like, "I'm confused."
Good one, Krusty.
Oh,
Right.
crap.
So Homer immediately gives it away.
Sells him out.
Yeah. But because of that disrespectful display, Vittorio now wants to kill them both, unless they can go through the loop together. This does not seem like a great possibility for them. I mean, Homer's never made it on his own, and the idea of them having to both ride a tiny bike, while comical, when you have their lives on the line,
And their
this
weight.
is some pretty hardcore stuff. Yeah, they're not made for this at all. So they immediately do their best. They really don't have any choice. Homer is actually riding on top of Krusty's shoulders. Krusty is taking the reins, which is probably the smart choice. He's got the better odds of the two of them. Only when Homer's losing his grip, he actually grabs onto Krusty's head and ends up covering his eyes, so Krusty can't even see.
Stop covering my eyes, you idiot.
This turns into this wonderful sequence where they get all sorts of turned around. They accidentally ramp up onto the bar, and Homer's head plays across these hanging glasses.
First
but
they
it
hit a
actually
pool
plays
stick,
song.
and they knock all the balls in on the pool.
That's
on the
right.
pool
They
table.
they clear the entire table as if by magic. Then they clink their heads across the glasses hanging from the bar.
And the theme of The Godfather.
That's right. I had that on the notes, and I forgot to say, you're right. The theme of The Godfather is actually the sound playing off of Homer's head, which is just a great, great little touch. But yeah, then they accidentally somehow manage to hit a bar stool in just the right way where it starts spinning, increasing their velocity and launching them exactly at the loop-the-loop. It gives them the exact right amount of speed to hit and clear the loop. They hit the landing, they stick it. Krusty's about to swallow the bike, and Homer jumps up and like jawses it out of his way, making the trick at probably the best it's ever been performed, definitely by 2 men. And the Italians are super impressed.
Ring.
They were like, "Yay, Krusty's!"
What I don't understand is how
Grazie,
are they able to do
grazie.
multiple loops on that thing?
Right. Thank you for saying that.
Vroom. Yes, because that's the biggest disrespect of physics that we've experienced in this episode.
Thank you for pointing that out.
But yes, the Don is happy. He's had great joy brought to this old Italian stereotype.
No, Don Vittorio, you're not.
Yes, I am. I know I am. Anyways, thank you, Krusty.
You're welcome.
I love that they call themselves out for this, the fact that they basically make fun of themselves for it being a big stereotype, but they call them on themselves, so it makes it okay.
You're welcome. So, we're even now, huh?
No, we just won't kill you, but you still owe us the money. $48.
And he's like super serious and intense when he says that.
Here's 50.
And immediately Don's like, "And 2 is your change, and we thank you." And they shake hands and are off. The debt is settled. Krusty's entire worth this whole time was a measly $48, which probably was more than the cost of all 3 or 4 bullets that were used, especially when you throw in the ones from the car dealership. Not to mention just, all
the
of the
overseas
gas
trip
money
to have
used.
plastic surgery.
All of this was ridiculous, of course, but this was a great bit. Real quick note on the inaccuracy or like a minor mistake. There was actually 3 $1 bills that were animated as opposed to just 2 $1 bills. Though some people argue maybe it was just folded weird. It seems that it does look like $3 and change, which would make it only 47 instead of 48.
Maybe
But
they wanted Krusty
minor
to be under
mistake.
their wing still, so they gave him an extra $1. So
They
that
wanted
he
to
owed
keep
them.
keep him owing. Yeah, absolutely. But that does bring us to the end of Homer the Clown. Toph, is there anything that you would like to add before we get out of here, sir?
No, that was the one thing I was gonna bring up was just how ridiculous it was that he went through all this nonsense over $48.
Absolutely, yeah, it really is just kind of insane.
It is, but it's in keeping with it's the spirit of the entire show, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's such a good joke, and it's such a slow, long burn joke. Because I mean, they set up this massive debt so early on. I mean, like they're talking about, he's lighting cigarettes with $100 bills and Action Comics #1 and things of that nature. And then to go
right,
to
they build
that,
the scale.
It really is just a great little punchline towards the end of the whole thing. But
I'm sure it's not any kind of reference to it at all, but it at least reminds me of the $1 bet from the movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy.
that could be. I think that it's reminiscent of, for sure. They probably watched that movie at lunch.
Yeah, because you just you just have these guys that are millionaires or billionaires, and then you think it's over this big bet, but it turns out to be $1. So it just seemed like it was similar.
Sure, yeah, I could see it being inspired or in tune with that joke for sure. Rich, was there anything you or that book of yours wanted to say before we're done with Homer the Clown?
My book actually pointed out a few things that I didn't notice at all, and maybe it's just I just happened to miss it this time, but I don't remember any of this. But they said some of the merchandise that was featured in the episode included a Weeble Wobble Sideshow Mel and a Krusty big-haired troll doll. And then also, Krusty had a Croon Along with Krusty gold album in his office.
I saw
which I
that.
didn't
Yeah,
notice
that's dope.
either. But on a personal note, I want to say, before watching this episode, during and after, I knew this was going to be one of my favorite episodes. And I'm not just talking about season 6. I have always adored this episode. I absolutely love this episode. And even with my high expectations on it, I still absolutely adored this episode while watching it. It's so funny. Ever since I was a kid, I've always cracked up, even at the clown noises and the fact that Homer's the safety inspector and he just sees all these people going do 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 do, and then they're literally on fire. Like, everything about this episode just makes me smile, and the Ned Flanders bit and everything. And up to this point, this is by far my favorite episode of this season and possibly of the series so far.
Wow, what a strong endorsement.
Yeah, I just love this episode to death.
So I have one last thing to say that kind of plays in tune with that, because I think you'll appreciate the history of what this went through. I already mentioned this script was written by John Swartzwelder, but one thing I hadn't mentioned is that this script actually bombed at the table read. Now, everybody who read the script really liked it, but when they actually performed it for the first time at the read-through, it just wasn't hitting. However, the director of this episode, David Silverman, claimed that he absolutely loved it and he knew that there was the potential there as long as the animation was fitting for the episode. And they ended up making this, even though it didn't perform well at that table reading, they actually ended up making this episode with very little changes to that script. So just thought it was fun that these two kind of powerhouses and the Simpsons staff kind of saw this vision together. And even though there was a lot of notes and a lot of negative feedback, it basically made it all the way from concept to full product with a very few amount of changes.
Well, that makes sense. It's a very visual episode, so when you don't have the visuals in front of you, it's kind of hard to see the painting.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense for what we saw, and especially with how many gags are just so built around the concept that Homer looks like Krusty the Clown, or even things like when he's kind of fantasizing or being affected by the advertising early on, when he sees the burn victims as clowns, things like that, that would probably not read nearly as funny as it would be as a visual gag. So if you were listening to this podcast and were like, that's not very funny, you should watch it.
Shut your damn mouth.
Other than that, I just want to say a big thank you to Toph from the Gravity Beard podcast conglomerate at this point, because you got so many shows going on, but we're still saying Gravity Beard podcast. Thank you so much for joining us here today, man. It was a ton of fun talking about The Simpsons with you. Please tell everybody where they can find your show and plug all your stuff one more time, my friend.
Yeah, well, first of all, again, thank you for letting me come on.
Oh, pleasure is all ours, man. Thank you.
To be on this specific podcast with you guys, talking about, I don't know, maybe my top 3 or top 4 pieces of American pop culture in my entire life. The Simpsons. I hold such fondness for it. So this is really, really fun. Where you can find Gravity Beard, the best place to find it is in our Facebook group. It's the Gravity Beard Interns. So come join. It actually is a really fun group, and there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in there. We are on Twitter. It's the Gravity Beard. I'm sorry, I guess it's at the Gravity Beard. And then you can find us milling around in the Underdog podcast community. The show is hosted on Podbean, but you can find it just by going to gravitybeard.com.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely check out the Gravity Beard podcast. Those guys are great. Always a fun conversation about random everything. So, and I wanted to tell you, I mentioned earlier, we talked about it briefly earlier, but I really like the thing you're doing with like the This Day in History. That's a lot of fun, man. You should keep those up. Those are cool.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you for saying so.
Yeah, for Richie and I, make sure you follow Richie at theWiz_Kid23. I am at MrMostDaysOff. That works pretty much everywhere. Of course, Best Darn Diddly is at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY. And you can always find our podcast at bestdarndiddly.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. Richie and I are very excited to be back with you again next week, where we're going to have another wonderfully special guest all the way from the land down under. Paul from the Countdown Movie and Television podcast is joining us to discuss Bart vs. Australia.
And you know, if there has to be a bastardized version of The Simpsons, I'm glad it's us.
And until next time, be cromulent to each other. That might have been my favorite one you've ever done of those, Rich.
What up, everybody? This your boy B-Rob, the host of the Random Ramblers with Rob podcast, to where we have random guests and we have random conversation. I don't know why we're saying we, because it's just me, but I guess it's we in the sense that I have a guest weekly, airs every Sunday and everything. So I guess it's we like that. We French. So check it out. Go to randomrobcast.com or check me out on Instagram at Random Ramblers with Rob, or Twitter at It's B-Rob, ITSBROB. Whoa.